gathering the sample of all over the criteria that has to be there, and all the constituencies have to be mapped by enumerators, and that data will be collected and it will be analyzed as per the questions that were to be put in that date that in that questionnaire. Next comes the characteristics, types, and tools of online service. So now we all know that there will be some Google Forms will be coming every day in any of the WhatsApp groups that you are in, asking you to fill those. And even the surveys have been conducted by, let's suppose, Geo Hotstar, YouTube India, and sometimes Instagram, Meta Facebook. So all these things, they'll be doing surveys. So you keep getting those things like, do you want this ad? Do you not like this ad? So what is it that you did not like anything in this ad? So they'll give you four options, right? So if you go through that, that is also the basic survey these uh, institutions have been collecting. Similarly, like that, for you, see, suppose for me to come up with something like, okay, today the class, there are has an average of about like 40% of the 40% of the students have got above A plus. Now, how did I come up with that notion? Is because I have collected the data of all the students, then I've calculated who all have got A plus, then I've did a percentage, then I've put that sampling process to it. So in that way, I have collected data, I have analyzed it, and I've projected it. So this is how the data is done. And now you can say that now how is it possible if your class contains like unlimited number of students? Then for that, I will be using certain criteria. Let's suppose I'll put some age group because as this is an open university, there will be multiple age groups of students, learners will be doing it. So if I do that, then I can control my data that I wanted to collect. So in that way you can have this multiple things in that way. So collecting data is very crucial. So you have to know as a researcher that what data that you need to collect. So that is where the hypothesis have to be built. The main initial crucial point have to be done. Now next comes, how do I collect data? Like what are the techniques that I have to use? So if the question comes to what are the techniques I have to use, then you can use face-to-face survey, then you can use telephone survey, mail-in survey, online survey, questionnaire survey, interview methods, or open-ended questionnaire or closed-ended questionnaire. So there are certain types that you can use in collecting a survey. So now the census that the enumerators that you'll have to go through in coming weeks, in that they will do face-to-face survey because they'll come to your home, they'll have a fixed questionnaire, they'll ask you what is your name, then they'll ask you your age, then they'll ask you your preferences, then they'll ask you like what are the items that has to be there, and are you receiver of any beneficiaries in from the government, etc. So there are very different types of question surveys that needs to be done, and there are certain tools and softwares. So after you collect all the survey, then if you put this tools and software, your collected data in that, then that software will do the work for you. Like if you put a formula, then here where the maths comes into picture, you have to put a formula like the chi-square test, the binomial distribution. Okay, so then what do we call it? F test, T test. So all different types of tests will be there. Then in that you have to find out the prepositions and also how deviated that your hypothesis it is from. Like you will have a fixed hypothesis. So from that you have to prove or point out that, oh, this is what people are going through. So from that conclusion of yours, you'll collect the data and you do that. So now the survey research is nothing but like, if we understand, research is very important in human life because let's suppose the medicines that you use today, they have been researched on either animals or human beings or on trial methods. Then only they have come to conclusion that these medicines are useful. These medicines work. Similarly, let's suppose there's a beneficiary scheme. So if there's a beneficiary scheme, you can have this question of how does government know that this policy has to be made. So now this is where the critical or crucial questions of our existence comes into the picture. So now how does government know that in these areas there's a problem and that needs to be addressed? So for that they'll be doing survey. That's what the initial household survey was done. And even if you talk about the state, there's this socio-economic survey has been done. So that is how the government does data collection, and it will come to a conclusion that oh, these many people that are living below the poverty line, BPL families. So these many people struggle with the daily food intake. These many people struggle with unemployment. These many people struggle with this access to education, access to health, access to infrastructure of like the basic amenities. So through the research or the data they collect, they'll have this knowledge of what is what. So for this research to be done, initially the survey methods or survey research, whatever that we use the technique to collect data was initially put through various scrutinies because research is like one of the different methods of social research. So in this, what happens is it focuses on applied social research. So application method ఉంటుంది. And it is mostly the empirical research which analyzes value aided benefits, and this gives you a survey view of survey research which is appropriate for you being a degree student. Let's suppose you have to do a project work in your end semester, or you are somebody working on, you want to get into the research side, then this is how you can focus on how the political science research, the survey techniques especially, that needs to be understood. So the survey technique or the research. So research is nothing but, let's suppose if we talk about social sciences, there are many subjects or we call it disciplines in social sciences like history, economics, political science, anthropology, sociology, public administration, so psychology. So all these things are there. So there's a methodology that you do for searching the truth. So how do you search the truth varies on the principles that you apply, varies on theories that you apply to the research. So this philosophic method, historical method, comparative method, case study method or experimental method, survey method, there are very different various methods that you apply to collect your data and formulate a theory. So in that way, the research empirical method needs to be studied. Now, basic concept that what is the scope that we are looking for? So the scope for this that we are looking for is largely either based on first, facts or factual methods or experimental methods, or assume that this has to be done. So this way we focus on how things got to be done. So now, if we talk about the meaning of survey research, so first find out what is survey method. So survey method is nothing but it is a research method. It is used for collecting data from a predefined group of respondents to gain information and insights on certain topics of interest. So survey is nothing but you go to house and you do the survey, then you collect the data, so you focus on what you are doing it for. So conducting survey is one of the primary research. So that is how the census 2027 is being done. So they go to house, they collect data, certain data that they are looking for. They'll ask questions. So that's how the survey research is done. So it's a stimulus response process which involves the researchers who stimulates by asking questions to the respondent, and this respondent provides answers in the form of their responses which are given. Okay, so the researcher asks you the question and you are the respondent here. You will respond as per the question which was asked. If there's an option to that question, then they will also tell you. So in that way, researchers collect the data that they wanted it to be. So social surveys also, social sciences survey, they have a very different purpose. Their methodology is very different, and they have certain objectives that needs to be attained. and they gather information, opinions, beliefs, and feelings of certain selected group of individuals. So this can be done for the demographic sampling. Demographic sampling means the demography means the area, the region where the I'll be collecting the information depending upon, let's suppose I have to put a criteria of I have to collect this many data from male, this much data from female, then I will pick my sample zones in such a way that I will have 50 members male and I'll have 50 members female. Now, if the demography that I'm looking for is age factor, then I'll pick those candidates, respondents whose age falls inside of the bracket region where I want to do the research on. Now, let's suppose if my demographic data is all about social status or economic status, then I'll divide the population as per their income. So like this, I will keep dividing the demography into the certain areas or certain way that which I want to collect data. Now, survey can also be understood that this also have, suppose they have also the caste because socioeconomic survey was done for caste. Then they'll also have religion as a factor. If there's an instigating factors that need to be studied, then religion can be a factor. So this, as a part in India also, we conduct survey for every 10 years. It's called decennial population census, and it is done by Registrar General and Census Commissioner, which is under Ministry of Home Affairs. So this is a top-notch example of how survey research is done, and it becomes a criteria for you also to have the live example of how survey is to be done, because I think soon or later, or already these enumerators might have reached your places asking for the survey census 2027 that they have come for. So this forms a live example for you to understand all this market analysis or the organizational analysis of demographic data that they are asking for. So these surveys can be uh, if I talk about the timeline, so sometimes surveys can be short, sometimes surveys can be long. Let's suppose if the survey is to be conducted, then they have to, it is to be conducted for 2027. Now, there are some surveys where, suppose there's a policy, uh, I want to make a policy. So first I have done a survey. Then I understood that I need to address certain policies where it can push this population and they can be beneficial from a policy. Then I'll do that. Then after a while, I'll also have to find out that whether the policy I have pushed, then is it working or not. So if it is working or not, then also I have to do a survey. So there is a survey before, there's a survey in between, and there's a survey after. And if I see that the survey which is done after the policy has been pushed, and if I see that it is not working properly, then I'll stop it. Then I'll regenerate the policy. Again, I'll put it in the market. Then I'll let for some years to go on. Then again, I'll do the survey. So this is how this survey is always this cyclical in nature. It is never linear, because if it is linear, then this policies analysis would be like they have to be cut short wherever they start from. And this survey research is always non-experimental because it is done in a single variable. So single variable and also the statistical relationship between the variables, mostly like that I'm telling you, like economic status, social status, educational status, religious preferences, ideological preferences. So only these things that it will be done on, and they have both dependent variable and independent variable that you can manipulate some variables which are fixed, and I cannot manipulate those, but I can manipulate other variables which are dependent on this independent variable. So there are types of dependent variables, independent variables. You all will get to know about it after some time. So now if I talk about like how did we come up with this methods or history of survey research, then we have to understand around like 20th century. these researchers and reformers, they actually wanted to understand about what is poverty and how did we have this poverty. And even in Indian independence lectures that if you come across, you'll understand about drain of wealth. So how did they find out that the drain of wealth was happening, etc.? So for that, they have used this social surveys by for every 10 years. So then this is how they understood that this country, this country has undergone this drain of wealth. Or you might have this example of how the countries are divided into the concept of developed economies and underdeveloped economies by doing the surveys. So now what happened if you take an example, classic example of US government. So US has been conducting surveys on the socio-economic conditions if that were existing in the country around like 1930s, and the several researchers have already uh, come up with this business of studying the consumer preferences on American businesses and their effect on electoral polling, their effect on electoral behavior. So all this have been studied. Like classic examples could be like this 1936, the US presidential election between Landon and Roosevelt, F. Roosevelt. So there's this magazine called Literary Digest. So what did it do was like it conducted a survey by sending ballot paper to Americans. So now they called it a straw poll. So now this straw poll, they predicted that London would win a landslide of elections. And the new pollsters were using this scientific method, which much smaller example, just to predict that Roosevelt would win in a landslide. Now, uh, there's this person called George Gallup. What he did was he criticized this literary digest methods before the elections because they guaranteed its prediction would be correct, and also it was correct because interestingly in surveys around elections, this time has led to like long-term projects, and all these factors were considered into voting. So now the survey methods can be used for this market research, consumer behavior, election polling. So all this are public health, policy analysis. So all these things were to be used in survey research methods. And the survey research method is done as a primary data collection because primary approach because we are not taking a secondary data which is existing in the market, but we are approaching the respondent directly and collecting the new data every time we do this. So now this there has been a question of how do I collect data. So in 1930s, what happened was the stream of from the discipline of psychology, various psychologists have come up with an advanced techniques in collecting data through a questionnaire method. So this questionnaire method till date we use it like at scale. So all the scales where 1 to 5 preferences will be given, likely, most likely, neutral. Okay, so all these options you might have come across. So this survey research method Likert scale, and they have got the stereotypical study of attitudes. So this goes back to long ago, and this has become a major source for collecting data through survey methods, and this helps us understand the demographic interests and the data that has been existing. And we try to develop a hypothesis and the causal relationship between different variables, the dependent variable and independent variables. So these are conducted on like the samples survey method usually have samples of large and diverse samples. They are not limited or controlled samples because the can be supplements to laboratory studies also, and it certainly like illustrates like how flexible the survey research methods is, because if I want to collect data on certain nuances, then I can focus on building my variables around that data. Now, how do I understand that the survey method or survey research that I've been doing is very good or what information does it give, if it gives me certain information or not. So now the certain characteristics of how do I find that survey research is good means it gives you sufficient demographic information, so which helps you to analyze. If you collect larger data, it helps you to analyze the smaller segments, smaller fragments, or divide the demographic based questions on age, gender, caste, religion, or their occupation, or social background, or economic background. So if I collect huge data dependingly, then I can divide as per my needs. Now, let's suppose if I want to control my topics to certain demography or certain factors, then I will put or insert questions which would be useful for me, and I would uh, not seem to focus on extra questions because the respondent would feel moved away from the questionnaire, feel moved away from the concept and might get diverted. So for that purpose, there has to be a focused survey. And also, second one is you have to make questions very clear and understandable because you have to also avoid the complex statements or the ambiguous language because not everybody will have this idea or access to the different words that we come across. So you have to always be concrete, like yes or no questions. You cannot put ambiguity, and also you cannot because you have to simplify all the statements. You cannot build up a complex statement, and you should have one question, and this one question has to be divided into two or three parts. So, like if a participant agrees with part one but not other, so their answers sometimes need not, sometimes they become like unmeaningful. So that's why you have to be very clear and particular in building or framing the question that you want to ask the respondent. So now when, like, suppose there are multiple choice questions and this respondent will select any response, then there has to be certain points, like we use the Likert scale in analyzing or giving points to that question based upon the multiple options that they pick from. Now, the logical sequencing of the questions is also very important. So then you have to be very motivating enough for the respondent to make sure that they feel sympathetic for you because you're doing the survey, and they feel energetic in giving the responses by themselves. They should not feel burdened. They should not feel that you are collecting some information from them so that they'll disguise the options and they'll give you the wrong questions. Now, there has to be like openness about that what question, I mean, what for you are collecting this data for. So you have to be very open about what and why you are collecting this data, and you are not going to misuse, and you are going to hide any vulnerable information of the respondent if you are putting your data openly on online. So now if you understand this survey method is all about the quantitative approach. So there are two approaches to conducting any research. The first one is qualitative research and second one is quantitative research. So quantitative research is in the name itself. So quant means you are handling the data. So you are collecting the samples, and the selected samples, which is flexible as per your information that you have collected, can be applied to various research questions. So now this survey research has its roots in social research, and they'll be used in election polling, policy making. So all these things, this survey methods have become a very crucial or important uh, method. Now you might have seen this during during West Bengal elections and Tamil Nadu elections, where this access exit poll have given, and this is how, then you might have got this question of how did they come up with saying that, oh, TVK is going to win or BJP is going to win? It's because they have went house to house and they've collected certain data from certain constituencies that they are looking for. So in that way, they have controlled their sample size and they have come up with that question exit poll data. So now, if we understand about what use or what is the importance or advantages of this survey research, is that surveys research is helpful if because in cases where the population or the sample size is more, because it can provide broader area and it ensures that accurate sample can be collected and you can have ample amount of data in hand to draw conclusions or even take important decisions. So it helps you, understand the views of individuals and experiences if the survey is done properly and nicely. And with this, the behaviors of respondents can be studied properly. And this is also termed as this legitimate approach because it has clear benefits in describing the variables in constructing the interest of the respondents, and it has potential for a variety of sources of error also. But there are certain strategies that also exist to reduce this potential for error. So now the certain advantages of using this survey research is that it is an inexpensive method of conducting research because you have to gather the quantitative data which is already available in the market by either by dropping those questionnaires. So this questionnaire can be like self-administered. You can go in person and collect data, or you can collect data through Google Forms, which also gives you a massive information from large democratic clusters. And some methods, like if you are giving it online, then it costs you nothing, no financial cost. So relying on personal efforts, you just a single person can collect the data and collect the targeted data, which ensures that the responses rate becomes available in a way to create accurate results. Then surveys are also a practical solution for gathering data because we all understood that it's a proper and practical way to gather information, and you can target them to a situation of your choice and use them in several different ways because you have ample amount of data in your hand. And it also helps you understand that in what way that you have to frame a question so that the data can be accurate. It can be like you can use polls, you can use questionnaires, you can use quizzes, open-ended questions, or multiple choice questions to collect information in real time in situations, or like let's suppose you have done some online exam and at the end they'll give you this online feedback form. That is also one type of survey. They are helping you are helping them understand that how the exam center was it available, was it open to all the roads, or were the staff good to you, or the facilities that has been told were beneficial or not. So this is how the examiner will get to know that, oh, this center is good and it can be picked for other further exams also. So now the surveys also provide the opportunities for scalability. Like, if I want to uh, if I want to gather information on audiences from any sizes, so I'll collect information on a larger scale, and from this larger scale, I keep scaling the data to a smaller one depending upon the type that I want to focus on, depending upon the need that I want to focus on. So now, like, if you look at the WhatsApp groups also, they do this polls there. So which helps you understand that you'll put a question that you might be planning for a trip. Then in your friends group, you'll say that, okay, I'm moving for the trip. I'll come to this place. So then you put options like yes, no. Then third option, you might also put like this date is not okay for me, look for some other date. So in that way, you can collect data which is easily uh, readable. Because if there are a group of 50 people, then you cannot keep asking one by one that do you want to come, do you want to join, or do you want to not join us. But it is better to drop a poll. Through poll, you can get the data. So similarly, imagine that data collection on a larger scale where suppose there's a constancy of like 1 lakh people are living in that, and how much data that you'll collect through it. So in that way, it is beneficial because it is a huge, humongous process, but it also generates a lot of social insights at personal level, and it also can help you understand that if that method is not helping, you can shift it to other methods also. Then they allow data from multiple sources at once. So if I'm constructing a questionnaire and if I'm giving that questionnaire to one people, then what am I doing is like I'm not simply asking them one question. So I'm giving them like 10 to 15 multiple questions where I'll be collecting data all at once. And so let's suppose if I have a room full of 50 students, then if I have a room full of 50 students and my questionnaire contains 15 questions, and I will give all these 15 questions to 50 students, then I'll be collecting a lot of data at once. So in that way, the scalability also is good, and it also helps you understand or collect data at once, where you can have multiple data points, uh, various observable challenges, and if it is online one, then you can share this in multiple channels where you'll find people from different geographical areas, different time zones. So they'll be filling all these questions at once, and you'll get all this data recovered in your sheets, and where you can analyze them at one place, and like with one link you can collect huge amount of data. So this survey method also, one of the important thing is like it gives you opportunity to compare results, because the information collected from survey methods, they use to club data together, and they try to analyze the information that is there. And also it helps you understand that time can also be saved, and you can interpret data very clearly, and they have this capacity to generate like or identify the trends, and helps you create the more opportunities, the data limit that you have collected all at once. And it also gives you like a straightforward analysis, and you can come quickly through visualized data, that if you arrange data by either gender factor or age factor or economic status factor, educational factor, ideological factor, or another one is like caste, religion. So if you generate the fixed variables like that, then it is very easy to visualize. You'll understand that, oh, this is what the research. Uh, I mean, this is what the data I have collected have given me the data on certain aspects. Then the respondents also will be put anonymous with the research approaches, because suppose if there's a phone conversation, then you need not have them face-to-face meeting. And you can also have this postal questionnaires. You can also have online email questionnaires, email surveys. So this allows respondents to always remain anonymous. Now, survey research is a tool with also fewer time constraints, because if there's an because if it is not face to face, then I might not get data quickly. But if I'm sending it over the email, if I'm sending it over the Google survey link, then I might not expect the immediate reply or immediate data that has to be collected. It is going to take a certain time. So depending upon the sample that I want to collect, then I have to wait for certain numbers that to be n, small n, that needs to be filled. Now, surveys can cover every component on any topic because it is dependent on the question that you are going to ask, and and also uh, you can create a positive experience for the respondents so that they should not feel bored, they should not feel exhausted, they should not feel frustrated in filling up this long length of questions. And also, as this is a low cost solution for gathering data, so it is a win-win for both the respondent. It is a win-win for both the. So it is a win-win for certain criteria that needs to be done in such way. But always there are certain limitations for any method. So be it survey research method also. So oh, so certain limitations. So certain limitations which can be understood. So in this, there's always this analysis of how the survey research methods, because it also has got disadvantages that it's always that people will sometimes they'll provide dishonest answers because as it is anonymous and you are not in front of them, they'll disguise or they'll give anonymous questions. They'll give you this wrong answers because they also want to help with specific conclusion that you are pursuing. And it also depends on the social desirability, and it also based on the interactions that the respondents have this question. So all these things are negative thing to this survey methods. And also you might discover some questions uh, are left unattempted. So they would not, if they don't want to give any wrong answer, all they do is like they'll avoid that question, and they'll not answer those questions. So respondents sometimes they might not choose to answer them, and you can make sure that survey stays short, and you can point to avoid like people having to abandon question, like making those questions compulsory. So then there can be differences on people, like how people understand the survey also, because sometimes it gets lost in translation and not everybody is capable of understanding what question or what questionnaire that you are using for. So this is how the survey struggle also sometimes convey with emotions with achievable results, and you can you know because if you see, suppose if I'm doing a face to face interview method, then I can understand that if I have asked some question and if the respondent felt that that question uh, is is something that they want to avoid, then you can see them in face. You can see it in their faces. You can see it that how they are responding to that certain question. So similarly, in email or in like online method, I cannot see their facial expressions or the notion that they're lying on that particular specific question. Of course, sometimes in interview method also but sometimes in interview method also, what happens is like the respondents to an extent is like they might also bluff. So, but these are all part and parcel of the survey. Then some answers can be challenging to classify also, because if there are multiple choice questions and we have to create they are always have to be done on Likert scale. And let's suppose if my questionnaire has got an open-ended question where I have asked a question and I have given some empty space for the short answer. So then in that way also it can be understood. Then next one is like some respondents will choose answers before reading the questions, and some surveys do not provide this level of personalizations, and some uh, surveys they disguise as a part of that you are conducting it as a part of hidden agenda, and some surveys are like they can be a real issue uh, that respondents face, and also they also have this accessibility issues which can also impact. So because they feel that they are overwhelmed by growing number of requests that they are getting for. So now what is this use of survey research in political science is it helps you understand that what are the trends that are going on, and it helps you covers various themes, because it has been a major tool in bringing the facts or data in real understanding real political phenomenon, because the survey methods helps you understand the data from the generalized point of view, and it gives you profound changes that needs to be understood. And because with 21st century that has come into the picture, this also helps you understand that how survey interview continues, and they have dealt with public skepticism, or most of the people sometimes they refuse to participate in it, because the study of survey over a period has become a scientific discipline of its own. And this trends in survey research in political science. There's a book called 21st Century Political Science, a reference handbook, which takes a stock of four or more important changes. These are like initially like cellular telephone ownership has increased in number of household or web survey, or like what is the fundamental distinction between the surveys and difference between probability and non-probability. And survey research in political science is it understands that great diversity of subject matter, and application of mass opinion, and it helps you understand that how it is more understandable or a common concern for understanding like the beliefs, attitudes, and the demography or the general definition of what is going on in society. This all can be conducted to survey research methods. And survey research is a process of collecting data as a small part of population. It helps you understand or make the general statements. Now, political surveys and political opinions. It is essential to understand that they have become important, and you might have seen this with recent elections also. Now, coming to political surveys, usually political surveys, what do they do is like they help the politicians to get information of the constituency and the demographic data, and it can help them target those audiences, and it can help them understand their needs and understand their wants, so that they can properly frame particular the manifesto around such uh, needs. So now this questionnaire method is used by political groups or activists, and they conduct this uh, surveys, and they help identify the supporters and the politicians that what public need, and this so that this organization or political party can frame their policy manifesto or agendas accordingly. So they can help reach the needs of the targeted population. So political information, political surveys help them increase the presence and formulate political activities, and for reasons like media accountabilities, or the candidate can position themselves in a better among his potential votes. So all these things are need to be understood. They help them strategic incentives or formulating policies, help them create new laws, help them come up with political campaigns which are strategic in nature. Now next comes this opinion polls. So opinion polls are also similar to this survey methods. It is also based on inquiry. So opinion polls is based on like specific issue that has been going on, or series of issues in a scientific and unbiased manner. And it is like it referred to something like a poll survey. So in poll survey, person conduct polls. Who conduct polls is known as pollster. And this concept of voter preferences report by Raleigh Star in North Carolina State, Wilmington, American Watchman, and Delaware Advertiser in prior to 1824 presidential election. So this shows that how it was helpful, like popular vote concept have come into the picture, and expert opinion polls can also be used in public research field. Like they would also go as this typically ignored interest of the public through this polls. So now next thing will be like there are various kinds of opinion polls. So first one is benchmark poll, bushfire poll tracking poll. So now what is this benchmark poll? This benchmark poll is like the first poll taken in a campaign, and it is often taken before candidate announces their bid for office. So but it also sometimes happens immediately after. So opinion poll, sorry, benchmark polls. So it gives the candidate the picture of like, where they stand in an electorate before any campaigning takes place. And it also shows them like, what type of voters they wish them to win, or, everyone in between those extremes. I mean, this is how the American elections will take place. And next one is brush fire polls. So these brushfire polls are taken between the benchmark polls and the tracking polls. So in this, the campaign is determined by how competitive the race is, and like how much money the campaigner has to spend. And they usually focus on voters, and the surveys and the messages which are being sent to the voters are tested here. And also brushfire polls also let the candidates know on if they have any progress on the ballot, and how the progress need to be made. And this kind of polls can be used by candidates or political parties to convince the primary challenges to drop out of the race and support the stronger candidate. Now, next one is a tracking poll. Tracking poll is also known as a rolling poll. So now in this polls, uh, the responses are obtained on a number of consecutive periods, and the results are calculated by using an average responses which are gathered by fixed number of like recent periods. Example like with past 5 days, what have been their opinions, and the result will be used for the 5 days continuing backwards, and the same data as before. Like previous, it's like on sixth day, the data on the without the data from the sixth day before that day, it is done. So, but there are certain limitations of these polls also. So, because over a time, these theories, the mechanisms which have been offered to explain the polling results, they reflect the errors, they reflect the summarized groups, like which can also create this bandwagoning or stra uh, strategic voting on understanding that how it prompts the voters uh, to vote for a certain candidates. So this is how the behavioral responses of the people also play a crucial role in this type of polls. So now this is why the researchers sometimes are moving towards like rewards based system to encourage the higher participation and completion rates. Like suppose if they are participating in any survey method or polling, they will be given a gift or they'll be given some contest entry. I mean, if this was a method that the government had employed for the census 2027, then everybody would be willing to possibly, but that's not possible at the demography that we are doing the census on. So, as we know, for any method, there are positives and there are negatives. So, but you should not see this something as positive or negative, but you should rather be uh, as a process that in which you are collecting a data and you are getting a data and you might also sit down to write the questions where the respondents have left to not to answer and you have to put entirely your like your effort in data collection sometimes if not you can pick the organizations or enumerators to collect data on your behalf as research assistants, which also sometimes helps you encourage in completing the activity. So this is all for today, which we have read about research survey methods. In next class, we'll be understanding about more details about how this can be done. So that's all for today. See you in next class.